Hi everyone, welcome back. Yulia Kosarenko. I want to talk to you a little bit more about AI and business analysis. I just published a video a couple of weeks ago about changing perspective on how we look at AI and potential threat of AI to our jobs, or how AI will change jobs of business analysts and anyone involved in business analysis. That change of perspective was related to, instead of worrying about whether AI will replace your job of writing requirements and producing documentation, to thinking how you as a business analyst need to be involved in the new types of projects, in projects that implement AI technology, in projects that aim to use embedded analytics, to embed those AI-based tools and solutions and machine learning algorithms into business process to make that process more efficient, which actually requires new approaches to business analysis and new knowledge from you as a business analyst, understanding of data, understanding of different types of analytics, various approaches to machine learning, what actually those machine learning algorithms produce, and how do you the results to actually change, improve, and optimize business process. So if you're interested in that, go back to my previous video. I will of course copy it in the comments. Now today, let's think a little bit more about another question. When you are using AI tools as a business analyst to help you do your job, where does it lead you? And what is the future of that? Does this mean that the more you use it, the more AI algorithms are now trained in business analysis and eventually will basically push you out of the market? Should you be worried about using ChatGPT for business analysis because the more you use it, the more you basically contribute to its training and contribute to your own demise? A little bit like there's that psychological aspect of when senior people are asked to train junior people so that the company can then get rid of senior people because junior people are cheaper. Is that what's going to happen? It's an interesting question, isn't it? I know everyone is excited about using chatbots to make your life today easier, or do something quickly and perhaps pretend that it took you a whole day to do it, whereas you just got ChatGPT to do your job for you. Now, I want to ask you something. So imagine you are working with an AI tool and asking it to help you to do your job. Perhaps you ask a chatbot to produce a list of business requirements for a certain scope, or propose what are the steps in the typical business process for a certain standard process. Perhaps you're looking to do some research, or generate a list of requirement stakeholders that you need to approach, or you're using a chatbot to plan requirements analysis and plan specific tasks. So you asking questions, right? There is lots and lots of downloads already online and courses and videos and materials about AI prompts for business analysts. These are the best prompts. This is how you prompt a chatbot to help you. And this is how you set it up. You say, okay, you are a business analyst with experience in such and such industry. You're producing documents for business stakeholders. They should be at this and this level of understanding with this many technical details versus business details. So you provide various guidelines and boundaries for the chatbot model to give you the appropriate response. And of course, we all know that the quality of response depends on your prompt, depends on how you ask, how you frame. And often you have to ask clarifying questions or ask the chatbot to tweak and change responses as you get them so that you can get closer and closer to what you wanted. So you've done all that and you got a response from AI, for example, producing a list of business use cases that can help you plan your business analysis. Now, the question is, who is assessing the response? So say you got that list, Are you going to actually read through that and assess and say, oh, that's not exactly what I wanted. Let me ask it differently. Let me tweak this. Oh, I forgot to mention this in my prompt. I should have mentioned it, and that will actually get me a different output. So you have to go through all of these iterations of questioning and answering, and basically you're changing your inputs to get the right outputs or desired outputs from that black box, right? Because chatbot is going to be like a black box. It was trained using billions of parameters. Of course, you cannot, no human being can kind of understand all of it. So you're playing with that black box, you're trying, you're putting that mental effort into changing your prompts and twisting your prompts, and now you have to keep your own database of your favorite prompts and how did you ask, and perhaps refer to those prompts later and later. On the other hand, you have to assess the outputs that you receive from the model and think, is it satisfactory? Does it sound like what I wanted? Does it look complete, or is something obvious missing? And why is it missing? Is it because I forgot to mention something in my prompt? Maybe something from that list proposed by the chatbot is not really applicable to our company, because again, chatbots work on the most probable responses. They analyze all the training data that went in to give you the most likely, the most typical, basically the average type of response. But your company may be different. Your project may be different. You may know something else that constrains what you need, or perhaps changes the scope of what you're expecting to receive. So you need to process the results and take what you need, discard what you don't need, or change and continue iteratively to get that output out of that AI chatbot. Now, that sounds like working with a really good secretary, or a really good junior analyst, or a really good assistant that's training to become a business analyst, because while they are doing the somewhat mechanical work of organizing and generating what you need, you are overseeing that work, right? You are directing it. You're giving it the right push. You're thinking of what questions to ask and in what way to ask the questions. Now, that is sometimes similar to working with perhaps like a junior person who just started in their career. You explain the task to them. Sometimes they don't get it absolutely, the way you want it, or perhaps they do it the way they were trained in college and university, but that's not what was expected. So then you think, as their mentor and coach, you think, I probably have to explain it somewhat differently, or let me give them more information, or let me demonstrate how to do it and set that example. So basically, you are acting as mentor and coach and a senior person to provide the right way of prompting and boundaries to get the right answer from your counterpart, which again could be a junior analyst, could be your assistant, could be your AI assistant. So with all that, you act as a senior person in the room, hopefully, right? You are the ultimate judge of the quality of whether that was acceptable, whether it was reasonable. And in cases where you're using AI to do some research online, you also need to validate the responses and make sure that it didn't hallucinate anything because there was no answer, or the answer wasn't in a training model. All right. So what I want to extract out of this description is that you have to do the thinking in the room, right? Yes, AI model is generating likely responses based on its probabilistic machine learning models behind that facade that you are interacting with. But you have to assess it. You have to think whether it's applicable. You are ultimately still responsible for the quality of analysis. You have to decide how to choose those outputs for your next steps in business analysis, how to use them to work on the next set of user stories, how to use them to plan your business analysis, how does it impact how you wanted to plan the next discovery or requirements workshop. So you have to process that pre-processed information, you process it further, so you're doing high level thinking. So you are still responsible for thinking. You are even more responsible for thinking than before. And a couple of years ago, I wrote an article about what is actually a BA mindset in a nutshell, because I tried to describe these 12 principles, but I was being asked, well, what if you had to describe it in one sentence? And in one sentence, to me, business analysis mindset is taking responsibility for thinking, okay? You don't just ask your stakeholders for what they want and write it down. And likewise, you don't just prompt something into an AI algorithm and just be happy that you got an output. You still have to think and evaluate and discriminate and compare information and analyze information and figure out what is suitable or not suitable, what is complete or not complete, what is contradictory or aligned and consistent. You have to do that high level thinking as a business analyst even more than before. So where does it lead us? Another article I read recently, and in fact it was quite a thread of multiple articles, talking about how AI technology is already displacing many workers, like knowledge workers. However, it's interesting that the emphasis is on displacement of junior entry-level workers. Okay, so that was said about lawyers, the junior lawyers who traditionally did mostly research in law databases and looking for similar cases and collecting information. That type of activity can be easily replaced by AI. The same goes for many entry-level jobs where that person maybe doesn't have a lot of responsibility. They're doing preparation, they're doing drafting of documents, they're collecting data, they're doing some basic analysis of that data. Those types of tasks actually can be much more easily replaced by AI than the high-level evaluating tasks, more planning what activities to do, determining what to do with the results of that research. What does that tell me? Setting the scope of further research, like deciding what is it that we need to research to help us to solve the problem or finish this job. So while AI is replacing more and more entry-level jobs, what becomes even more valuable is senior level capabilities or senior level competency, knowing which questions to ask, knowing what prompts to formulate, knowing how evaluate the response from that research, whether it was delivered to you by a junior worker that just came to start their job from a university, or you got it from an AI algorithm. Deciding what to do with the results, determining the right interactions with the right stakeholders to discuss what you learned and how it can be used, and whether it's sufficient to make some important business decisions. So a lot of it is senior level thinking that requires experience, that requires more judgment, that requires high level of analysis that multiplied by your expertise or experience working in certain industry or in certain type of company or with certain groups of people. So bottom line is, the more senior you are, probably the more you do things that AI cannot do. Definitely not yet, okay? Nobody knows where the future lies, of course. But if I were to give you an advice about how to stay relevant, it is to become senior, act like a senior business analyst, tackle those senior level competencies as soon as possible. Get on with it. You need to learn to do more of those things that AI cannot do, right? In politically correct and ethical and diplomatic interactions with stakeholders, with other human beings, right? Understanding those hidden agendas. And one example of that is, think about it, when AI analyzes information based on your prompts, it can only analyze information you provided to them. In real interactions with people, especially with stakeholders that may have some political motivations, Sometimes you can detect things are not being said, things that are being omitted, or maybe hidden questions, hidden agendas. That is not necessarily something that an AI algorithm can guess. They can only make assumptions based on what is typically happening in such and such scenarios. So you will have to look for some hidden undercurrents in your company that may actually be impacting the project or initiative or the relationships. As a senior business analyst, you have to learn how to combine different fields of expertise together. You need to learn about data and about process improvements and about user experience and understand when to call on which of these knowledge areas to help with the next steps. You need to work with architects. You need to work with technical people. You need to look at the big picture. You need to create meaningful and useful diagrams and models that help understand and then link one model with another and understand when to use different methods of communicating with stakeholders, when to use visuals versus when to do data analysis, when you need to do a demo perhaps or do a group review, when you need to do proof of concept. So there is a lot of things that the more senior you are, the more sophisticated and experience-based your value is, right? And it's going to be harder and harder to replace it with just chatbot features, because this is literally large language models that are very good at processing large amounts of text and providing you with the most likely response to text-based prompts. But what we do, for example, with business projects for solving business problems is much bigger than that, okay? And even implementation of certain AI recommendations or implementation of decisions that have been based on, say, a sophisticated machine learning algorithm, the implementation of it is still a human task. Change management, adoption, figuring out how responsibilities of people need to change, how to encourage them to use analytics in the right way, and so on. A lot of this is so dependent on your human abilities. So what I want to finish with today is, yes, definitely learn about AI and its capabilities. Don't forget that AI is based on machine learning. So learn about machine learning and what it actually means, how it uses data, how data needs to be prepared for machine learning algorithm, for using by AI tools, right? Because you still have to train the models on the data that is specific to your problem, your company. Learn about all of that, but don't forget to continually practice your senior competencies, those that are not easily replaceable by AI, those where we humans outperform AI. And don't forget that you are responsible for thinking. You have to do high-level thinking. You have to analyze inputs provided to you by these models, because that's your job, right? And to finish off today, I wanted to share with you one more perspective on this. You know, all that hard work of generating prompts for AI and twisting it this way and tweaking it that way and building up your library of prompts and then looking at answers and thinking of what may be missing and how to evaluate it. Sometimes it may be actually faster to do the whole thing yourself than go through all that trouble. So you also have to evaluate when is it more efficient to use AI tools versus just going ahead with your own thinking. And don't forget that it helps you practice thinking, and don't forget how to think critically. Don't forget how to think on your own. And I remember this old quote from a movie where this person who has all his life, he was fixing horse wagons. He was an expert in it. And he has to fix this another one. And the owner asks, well, how long will it take you to fix it? He says, yeah, about a day. He says, oh, a day? What if I gave you a helper? And then he says, you know, with a helper, it will probably take me at least 3 days to do it. So think about it. Sometimes using the helper or trying to offload some of the work on the helper and then telling them exactly what to do, checking their work and revising it and asking them to reduce certain things, sometimes that takes longer than just doing it. Now, if you are doing it to mentor a junior business analyst, then it's a worthwhile investment, because eventually your junior business analyst will grow into a more experienced one. Whether you will apply the same psychology to working with AI tools, that really needs to be judged based on the efficiency of the responses and how much does it cost you, by the way, to run those, because running AI tools, of course, is not free, it's not cheap, it requires energy, water, and so on. So all of these considerations have to come into that big picture. But whatever they are, remember, you're still responsible for thinking. You want to retain the capability of critical thinking and not lose it because of too much reliance on tools doing the rating for you and doing data collection for you. You need to make sure that you understand what they respond with, you can evaluate it, you can determine what's missing, and you decide how to use the results. So that's a little bit of take on AI and business analysis. If you're interested in more, my new book, Foundations of Business Analytics, just came out, and it came out as a textbook. I'll provide the link below. I have a course on data management for business analysts and professionals that I will also share with you in links. And until next video, take care.